Hello, everyone. I'm a teacher, and that was really weird because you all went quiet as soon as you thought I'd about. That's what I wish would happen every day in the classroom. Am I holding that okay? Because I'm used to projecting my voice without a microphone, obviously, so I'm aware that I might be a little bit loud, so apologies if that's the case. Thank you for coming to this session today. I'm aware that you might call this a graveyard slot, and everybody's very tired, but I'm hoping that I have a lot of positive things to say about local politics and the difference that it can make today, as has been foreshadowed by Jack. Thank you for that. That was very helpful. This has been an amazing conference, hasn't it? I've had an absolutely fantastic time. It's been so good to spend 2 days amongst other committed animal rights activists, people who share that will to change the world for better. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm ready to go back to school tomorrow now. As Poppy said, my name's Lee, and I'm currently the country's only Animal Welfare Party representative, hoping that we get that changed pretty soon. And I represent the beautifully named Priest Popple ward on Hexham Town Council in Northumberland. Has anybody been to Hexham? Is there anybody who doesn't know where it is? Okay, so Hexham is in Northumberland. It's on Hadrian's Wall. We are still very much grieving for Sycamore Gap up there. And today, I would really like to talk about the importance of having humans advocating for animal rights where decisions are made that directly impact other species, and quite often that is actually at local level. So a footnote before I start. In highlighting the importance of elected representatives working for animal rights, I'm not at all seeking to diminish the importance of other forms of activism. In fact, many of us on Hexham Town Council are activists. I believe getting elected is a form of activism. And I think really, whatever form of activism you're engaged in, we should all be working together to achieve the best possible results. A little bit about me and the area that I represent. So there's a horror about to appear on the screen. So this is one of those pictures that makes me wonder why my parents let me leave the house like that, but also makes me glad that I'm bald now. So this is me aged 11, and I was sort of, how can I put this? I was a unique, eccentric child, I think it's fair to say. And at 11, I turned vegetarian. My parents thought it would just be a phase. Little did they know that my 8-year-old sister would follow, and then both of them would follow. The only person that didn't was my younger brother, who continues to be a rebel to this very day. And I think I'd always found it really icky eating meat. There was always something about it that just did not sit right with me. I would look at my plate and think, I know that's a dead animal. You can't disguise that from me. I know that's part of a dead animal. I'd watch my mum sort of pulling bits out of chickens on a Sunday and think, isn't this weird? Does nobody else? Am I the only one? This is really weird. So I went vegetarian. And then in 2017, I came across a video called Dairy is Scary, and then just made several links, watched Earthlings, did a little bit of research and thought, okay, I need to join the dots. I cannot continue buying products that I know are part of that system of exploitation. The system that I thought I'd withdrawn from, but I actually hadn't. That's me. So what about Hexham? So Hexham, it's a lovely place. It's absolutely beautiful. It's been named Britain's happiest place to live several times. It's currently at number 4. We're trying to get it back up to number 1. We don't get told the reasons why, but we've been named the happiest place in Britain to live 3 times now. So, and it is a happy place to live. It's a really, really nice place to live. It's a medium-sized town between Newcastle and Carlisle. I might be biased, but it is genuinely a really, really nice place to live. But the area around Hexham is extremely rural. I'm the head teacher of officially England's most remote primary school with 10 children. And one of my teachers is a member of the Young Farmers. So I'm operating very much within that kind of sphere. Hexham itself has an auction mart. It is seen as very much being a rural part of the world. It's been conservative since 1924. At one point, it was the only constituency in the northeast that was conservative, and that was the case for 13 years. But actually, it's not, I would say it's conservative with a small c. And Hexham itself is a centre of a very large constituency, so it's the second largest geographically constituency in the whole of the country. Hexham itself bucked the trend in the Brexit referendum. It's actually a very progressive town with very liberal leanings. But for decades, the town council had been dominated by a certain demographic, and that was Conservatives of a certain age, shall we say. And the feeling was very much that these people felt that they were entitled to occupy those seats on that council. And there was a sense as well that they weren't trying to move things on, that they were just happy for, as well, conservatism suggests, for things just to stay the same, and that anything that threatened that was a threat. So before the election in 2021, there were 14 seats on the council, 12 were Conservatives and 2 were non-Conservatives. And in 2024, as of this year, we have Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrats, Greens, Independents and Animal Welfare Party represented on that council. That's a huge shift. It's great in terms of plurality, in terms of democracy, but it's also great in terms of just moving things on, getting progressive stuff done. It means that we, even if some people disagree with what we're trying to do, they're outnumbered. And all of the progressive parties work together, seek consensus. We disagree. We have very heated debates on some things. But generally speaking, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We are all people who want things to be better for ourselves, for animals, for the planet. So the thing that struck us though when we got elected was that the council, like many councils, had declared a climate and biodiversity emergency, but nothing was getting done. And I think we all know, don't we, that quite often councils do this and then sit on it as if that's enough. Or we know the problem exists, but the thing is nothing was being done to try and resolve the problem. So I think it also becomes more complicated when you come in and you try and bring animal rights into it, you try and bring the prospective plant-based diets into it. That's somehow seen as sort of crossing the Rubicon into very uncomfortable territory for some people. Thankfully, 3 out of 14 of those councillors now are vegan, which is a huge proportion on a 14-seat council. So it makes it much easier. It gives us a head start in terms of lobbying on vegan issues. When I started representing the Animal Welfare Party, I set 3 priorities for myself. One was promoting plant-based food and drink at all council events. Another was ensuring that all of our policies as a town council consider animal protection and habitat conservation. And then the third was related to promoting sustainable transport. Public transport in our part of the world is shockingly terrible. It just isn't joined up at all. On the first point around food and drink, I've already succeeded in getting council approval for a plant-based pioneer scheme for Hexham. So what we're looking at is accrediting all of the cafes, pubs and restaurants in Hexham, of which there are many, and giving them an award from bronze to gold based on the breadth and quality of their plant-based options. Now, I thought when I took this to the Community Engagement Committee, there might be some opposition to this, but there was absolutely none. And the reason for that is that everybody agreed that signposting people to where they need to eat can only be a good thing. It was felt that more choice is a good thing. And actually, there was a representative there from Visit Hexham, which is the sort of tourist promoting agency for the town. And she straight away said, she's not a vegan, but she straight away said, we'll get it on the app, we'll get it on the website, we'll have a page specifically for this. So it went down really, really well. It's quite detailed, as you can see, but we're setting quite high standards. Because one thing that really bugs me, and I'm sure it bugs you as well, is when you have to pay for non-dairy milk. Knowing that the markup on coffee is already ridiculous, then they want to charge you 50, 60, 70p for non-dairy milk. It gets me every time. I would rather go elsewhere or just have an Americano. So this really is setting quite a high bar, but it's also encouraging people who aren't meeting that standard to actually make more of an effort. I have to say it is ironic because my my brother-in-law is French and has a French restaurant in the town. And this is not the reason I've done this, but he will not get bronze, silver or gold. So it's about anybody that's not making that effort to just get with the times, make an effort, and at the end of the day, that can only be beneficial to them as well. So even in a town like Hexham, which people often pigeonhole as being, a farming community, people do understand that change is needed and actually that change is inevitable. Recently, we had a mayor's reception, the kind of formal event that I'm naturally quite uncomfortable with, but The 3 vegans on the council put quite a lot of pressure on the venue that was hosting it to make more of an effort with the vegan options at that. And when we got there, it was half the buffet was omnivorous, and a whole half of the buffet was vegan and labelled vegan. So we really think that's sort of change in the right direction. So my next goal is getting the council to agree to animal-proof all of its policies and events. I've already got the town to adopt a poverty-proofing policy to make sure that we're not just presuming that because Hexham is fairly affluent, that everybody in our town can afford to do the things that we organise for the town. The next thing that I want to do is to get the council to agree to animal-proof everything. We're trying to do that a little bit in terms of making sure, obviously, that the bonfire, which I don't go to for ethical reasons, but making sure as far as we can that there are no hedgehogs in the bonfire. But we're lucky enough to share where we live with a huge range of species of animals. And it makes sense that we would write the protection of those animals into everything that we do. So for me, getting involved in local politics means that you can directly influence things like the planning process. And that's really powerful. So my colleague Jane Smith succeeded in getting her hedgehog motion passed when she was a councillor in Alsager. And this means that for every new planning application, native hedging should be stipulated for all new boundaries. And where that's not possible, any solid walls or fences must incorporate wildlife tunnels to allow hedgehogs and other animals to pass through. Fairly simple, straightforward, but it's since been replicated by more than 50 other councils, which is amazing. And it shows the power that having elected representatives for animals can have. In Hexham, even though we couldn't, sadly, prevent McDonald's from coming to town, and we did reject their planning application, it was overturned by the county council, we have succeeded in thwarting their plans to erect a massive totem McDonald's sign right by the roadside, which would have obscured the view of the town, caused immense light pollution, and provided 24/7 advertising for one of the most unethical companies in the world. So that is not happening, which we're very, very pleased about. And I think for me, really, putting animals alongside humans at the centre of the planning system is putting your money where your mouth is in the fight against speciesism and biodiversity loss. So what I mentioned earlier about councils sort of talking the talk but not walking the walk, we are trying as much as we can to actually walk the walk. So there is power, I think, in nailing new colours to the mast politically and saying, I want to be a voice for the voiceless on a council. Being an elected representative is, of course, just one of many ways in which you can do that. And I'm also acutely aware that I'm very lucky to serve on a council that is not on the Jackie Weaver Handforth Parish Council model. As funny as that was, we are a council where we have healthy debates, but there's a spirit of joint endeavour, and we are bringing the people who are naturally averse to this kind of thing along with us. So we're working across the political spectrum to address the crises that we face and which we have stated that we face. So in terms of the Animal Welfare Party, what could you do to support a party that is specifically and explicitly advocating for animals? Well, we might be a small party with very finite resources, unlike the large political parties, but we have huge ambitions for animals. Londoners can vote for the Animal Welfare Party in the London Mayor and Assembly elections in May, where we are the only party standing with an express aim of rejecting speciesism. We consider standing for election to be a form of activism, so you could consider standing for the Animal Welfare Party in the upcoming general election. But for those of you who would prefer to focus on local issues like myself, we're always keen to hear from people who would like to stand and represent us in a local election. Being an elected representative can be tiring and frustrating at times, kind of on a level with teaching, I would say, but the rewards more than outweigh the challenges. Animals do need advocates at the heart of local decision making. So thank you. I look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you all for your snappy but insightful talks. We're going to open up for questions. If you've got a question, raise your hand, and also indicate who your question's for. Okay, we'll come around.
Oh, thank you so much. That was fascinating. It's just a question about the change between the council makeup between 2017 and 2024. What happened to kind of like switch that, do you think?
I think people just got fed up. So a lot of our campaign revolved around like knocking on doors and saying, do you think the council is doing enough? Do you think it's dynamic enough? Do you think they are listening to you and sort of implementing the things that you want? We went into it saying to people that we would be a consultative group of people, so we would consult the community on what they wanted. But there was a lot of frustration that hadn't come to the surface, that we brought to the surface, with the fact that we had a group of people who felt genuinely entitled to be in that position until they reached the age of 80 or 90. So we got together a group of people, a very diverse group of people, for Hexham. The council now has its first non-white councillor. The council has an LGBT councillor. This might not seem big to many of you, but for a place like Hexham, it really is. And we just went out and we said, this council is not representative of the community it's meant to be serving, and it could be so much better. And whether you vote for this person of that party, that will be a positive step in the right direction. And all of the feedback that we've had since, I took my whole school in our minibus to Hexham Abbey to see the Museum of the Moon, and somebody stopped me and said, "Oh, you're on the town council, aren't you?" Tried to say, "What a great job you're all doing. Like, the town just feels different. It feels much more vibrant." And that's the moment where you think, "Yeah, actually, this has kind of been worthwhile." So it's just about underlining what was wrong and saying this is what it could be like.
Amazing. So was it kind of a formal coalition or informal coalition? Did you kind of go out like with that as a group of mixed cross-party representatives, I suppose?
Yeah, we all knew each other.
Okay.
Many of us are activists. So many of us are activists for local public transport, or lots of other causes. So we all kind of knew each other. We didn't campaign formally together or have some sort of formal alliance, but we're discussing how we might do that next year for that election to make sure that we all get re-elected and that we're actually supporting each other as much as we can without sort of stepping over boundaries of sort of party loyalties. But to a certain degree, party politics shouldn't really play too much of a part at local level anyway. It's all about doing the very best that you can for the community.
Thank you.
Hiya. I'm just wondering how best to get involved in the Animal Welfare Party. I did try and contact them and didn't hear anything back, like lending services. Like, I'm a photographer, do some digital stuff. But I didn't hear anything back, which I thought was quite disheartening, because I was like, my politics would align with the Animal Welfare Party, and I'm quite, I'm into politics. So I was a little bit disheartened when I didn't hear back. I'm just wondering, I don't know whether you got a small team or, just how best to get in touch.
Yeah, I mean, that is a real shame, and I apologise on behalf of the party for that. I don't know how that happened. I suppose even the lead of the party works full time. there's nobody that we are all essentially volunteers, but that doesn't excuse that. You should have definitely had a response. Would you mind hanging around at the end and I'll get your details? Yeah. Is that okay?
Hi, my name's Alex Burke. I'm running for the London Assembly in the May 2nd election, and the Greens have got 2, so we want to get 1 on the London Assembly. We've put some leaflets here for anyone in London who wants to get people to vote for us. We've also got a candidate running for mayor, which gets you a mail out to 7 million homes in London paid for by the government, so thought we'll have some of that. Now, Lou, sitting here, is the coordinator for London for Plant-Based Councils, and I've been helping her with local council Hackney, where we live. She's met with the council, and I've met my local ward councillors who are very up for it, and they've talked to the environmental guy, and they said the problem they're getting is that they're getting pushback from their colleagues about, we want the freedom to eat meat and stuff. What do you say to your colleagues, or what can we tell them to say to their colleagues to keep this moving forward? Sorry.
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just focus on that error message. Sorry, Alex, would you mind repeating your question? Sorry.
Yeah, we've talked to, Lou's been into Hackney Council, presented, and I've talked to my local ward councillors who go along to the monthly surgery, and they're very up for getting plant-based catering into the council, and they've brought it up with the environmental coordinator. And this is a Labour council, 50 out of 55 councillors are Labour, very progressive, lots of vegan cafes in Hackney. But they said they're getting pushback from their colleagues about, people don't like being told what to do. So you must have encountered initial resistance if you've only got 3 vegans. What can we tell them to say to keep this moving forward?
I think as soon as you mention the word choice, I think that's the winner for me. So as soon as you say it's not about restricting choices, actually it's about more choice. That's where I made the breakthrough. And pointing out as well that in a town like Hexham, if we go by even 5% of the population being vegan, that means that there are upwards of maybe 500 vegans in Hexham. And then you relate that to, this might be controversial, but sort of commercialize it a little bit. Imagine all the business that can bring into the town. People come to Hexham for days out. Imagine, because I know as a vegan that if I go on Happy Cow and I look in somewhere and I think I can't eat anything decent there, I won't go. So it's when you have insights like that you can bring into the conversation that I think people listen. So it's that kind of what's in it for me thing, isn't it? So no councillor is going to object to the idea that you're going to be bringing more people, more money, more business into the town. So I think it's about choice. And also for me as well, the power of saying, look, if you have to stamp your feet a little bit, saying, before we came into this council, you declared a climate and biodiversity emergency. We are now coming in and doing the things that need to underpin that to actually start making inroads with that. It's just not good enough to declare it without having a plan for how you're going to actually tackle it. And knowing that you have those people behind you as well, that's always easier. The fact that we've got sort of 10 of us that are all singing from the same hymn sheet is massively powerful. So we're all sort of frantically trying to get lots of things achieved in case, worst case scenario, we don't all get re-elected. We're trying to change things and really sort of bake in that change so that it's very difficult for the next council to undo.
Can I just quickly add to that in Manchester we've got councillors that have endorsed individually and said that the councils won't endorse. But what we've got activists who go down, and these are genuine cases. These are mothers who've got children, going to council meetings and asking why there's no vegan meals for their kids. So their kids are having to take their own vegan meals. So it's at grassroots levels, just getting the individuals to the councils, raising the concerns that you've got. I've raised my concerns about my hospital experience. So I'll be taking that with the hospital, saying, what did you do for me? So whether you're in a hospital, whether you're in a school, it's at grassroots. We need to stand up and go to the councils and raise your hands. And all the council meetings are listed. So I advise, I encourage all the individuals to get involved.
Thanks to all 3 of you. I'm Alistair from Plymouth University's and Alma Rising. I'm sorry to Aaron and Jack. Another question for Lee. It's about like purity politics, and you as a vegan being in a position of elected, political power. How do you deal, like psychologically, maybe with talking to, having relationships with, maybe feeling like you're compromising on some of your, maybe you're not, maybe you do, maybe you don't find this at all, but do you find that you are compromising on some of your moral values, maybe in this position when you're, I don't know, talking, discussing, debating, deciding on policies, that kind of thing? And how do you think about that? It just feels like a hard gig being the only AWP elected representative in the whole country.
I would feel worse if there weren't 2 other vegans, for sure. And they're both independents. I guess I've kind of identified an area where I think I can make a difference. So I'm sort of limited in the other things that I can do, just the virtue of the job that I do. I have in the past sort of been very heavily involved in trade union activism, for example. I think now that I am the head of a school, I've just found something that I can do that fits in with that and sort of utilises my skills, I think, as well. But I never feel lonely. I never feel like the outrider on our council, which is really, really nice. And certainly if I do, I just go through a process of, because we all know each other, we can talk quite openly and quite honestly with each other. And like I say, we have had some quite fiery debates. And things have got quite close to the bone a few times on a few issues. But by and large, we always come to a satisfactory conclusion for everybody. So I don't feel particularly lonely. The party's been great in terms of supporting me. And I think when I look at the party's manifesto for the last general election, every time I feel a little bit maybe downbeat about whatever, I look at that manifesto and I'm like, right, this is why I'm doing it, because it lays out in very clear terms everything that I believe in. And I've sort of nailed my colours to the mast so that I can apply that as much as I can. Within the limits of what I can do, because a town council is limited in what it can do, but I prefer to look at what it can do rather than what it can't do. And I do genuinely think it's in planning and community engagement where town councils can have the biggest impact. But I never feel isolated. I don't know how people see me in private, whether they think I am some sort of crazy animal rights person. I don't know. And if they do, great. I'm quite happy with that. But they all know me personally, so they know that that's probably the case anyway. But no, it's only been positive.
Yeah, thank you all for the really wonderful talks. I think this one is for Lee and Jack. So I get that quite often we go with the environmental angle for this, but do we think that there's much of like an economic case to be made for these kinds of things? So councils famously don't have a lot of money, and so is that a kind of a thing that you guys have explored, had any success with, or not had success with? Is this something that we should, not be looking to push?
So I think that's a really important question, and I think just to give some context for everyone, local government has seen since 2009 an average of about 40% cut, which is just absolutely astronomical, and that means we're seeing multiple reports. Essentially, local government is across the country bankrupt or near bankrupt. We have seen some local governments, local councils actually declare the closest thing they can to bankruptcy, and about 1 in 6 are incredibly close to that. And that is an issue that really, it's hard to overstate how oppressive that issue is in council chambers. Everyone knows that there's enormous strain on resources, and we also have to recognise that whatever we're asking for is, if there's any resource requirement, we are in competition with vital services that councils provide, many of which are also statutory services, so they are legally required to provide. So I think the way in talking about the economic side of thing that we've found is trying to stress that this is a way of achieving a climate goal that at the moment we have 2 councils that have done financial, so Exeter and Oxfordshire have both financially analysed the impact of their shift. We're hoping to have a few other councils that have passed plant-based motions, and they've said that the cost is marginal, minimal, that kind of language. So what we've framed it as is this is a way of achieving your climate commitments without a cost. I think I would love to be able to make a stronger economic argument, and I'm sure we may soon get one. But at the moment, we don't have a particularly robust economic argument for why this is positive. But this may not be true everywhere, so I wonder if that's true in Hexham.
So we inherited a situation where the previous Conservative-dominated council had just, how Conservatives like to portray themselves as good stewards of the economy, and then you get Liz Truss. They like to. This is what they do. So their winning tactic is to tell people that they're the only ones that can be trusted with the money. So when we came in, we had a situation where we did a precept. So we asked the county council to charge a certain amount to people for the town council and what it does. And we realised that actually we were asking for much less than other similar towns in Northumberland and elsewhere. So for whatever reason, we just weren't raising the money to be able to do the things that we wanted to do. So we were very honest with people, and we said, look, and people agreed with us. We said, we need a higher precept so that we can do the things that are in our ambitions that we know that you want as well. And we had to do that. We did that in a year where the cost of crisis living hit. So we had a very lively discussion about, can we ethically do this? We worked out it was 12 pence per week per person. And we had a really robust plan for what we actually wanted to do with that extra money and how we were going to use it and how we were going to, within that process, safeguard the climate, biodiversity, things like that, the things that we know actually mattered to people. So I think as long as you have a detailed plan about how you're going to make that work and why you are taking more money out of people's pockets, it's okay. But I think where you struggle is where you've got a council where they're just not willing to get the money that they need to do things they want to do because there's no ambition. And that's what we inherited. So I think as long as the plan's there, the economics generally, touch wood, follows.